Hey, good morning, everyone. And here we get our day started off. We get our dose of God's Word to get us off on the right foot. This morning, I want to spend a little bit of time look at a couple of passages in First Peter chapter 4. Peter has been talking about, giving an account to God, and he starts this chapter off about those that are Christians, that they're not running, they're not living, they're not doing the same things that they used to do, and they begin to catch some slack or some flack from those that used to know them how they were. But within the midst of all of this, he makes two statements I think that are very profound. That should be very important to us and and something that we should really think about, not just today but each day. And one of those is in 1 Peter chapter 4, and he says in verse 5. He says, "They will give an account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead." Think about that statement for just a moment. You know, one day we're going to die, or we are going to be alive when the Lord returns. Either way, there's going to come a point to when we are going to give an account to God. So many today, and some of these mainstream superstar preachers and pastors and all these kind of guys, they essentially just kind of tell you, just do what's in your heart. Do what you feel is right. We've got grace and we've got mercy. We've got John 3 say all of this basic concept. Just do what you feel is right. Is that truth? And what's right is just it's relative to whatever you feel. Think about this. If that's true, why would Peter write this? If truth is dependent upon what I have in my heart, then the judgment and the giving an account is irrelevant. Why would there do that? Why just in our country, in our society, why do we have courts? Why do we have judges? Because there's a law, there's a set established system of what's allowed and what's not allowed, of what's right and what's wrong. And when folks break that system, now they have to give an account for their actions. So just pause and take a moment to think about they will give an account. That means truth and what is true and right is not relative to what I feel in my heart. If that's the case, there is no judgment. There is no accounting of God. Then Peter lied when he wrote this. And if he lied about this, what else did he lie about? I don't believe he did. I believe these mainstream mega superstar preachers, I believe that they're the ones that are lying. I believe that these Bible colleges, these seminaries, I believe they are the ones that are lying, that's promoting and putting forth this concept that whatever you want to be right, well, God's good with that. Peter says they will give an account. Giving an account automatically declares there's a standard. There is a system. There is an absolute truth. And when we break that truth, that's when the accounting aspect of these things come in. Who's ready to judge the living and the dead? If what is true and right is simply based upon what I feel in my heart, there's no judgment, is there? But notice something else. There's another verse that Peter says. That was verse 5, verse 6, or verse 7, sorry. He says, "But the end of all things is at hand. Therefore be serious and watchful in your prayers." Think about these two statements that Peter has made here. He says, the end of all things, or verse 5, he says, they will give an account to him who is ready to judge the living and the dead. Verse 7, but the end of all things is at hand. That means all things. That means this world. That means everything. It says the end of all things is at hand. What that means is it can happen at any time. That's the idea of at hand. Like you may have your cell phone at hand. You may not literally be on it at any particular time, but it's at hand to where you could pick it up at any time. And we do those things. Well, that's the idea of what Peter's saying, is at the end of all things, it can happen at any time. It can be picked up at any time. It can be declared at any time. It's at hand. Therefore, because that's the case, all right? Because it's the case that the end of all things is at hand. It can happen at any time, and that we're going to have to give an account to God. We're going to be judged by God. Therefore, the end of all things is at hand. Therefore, what, Peter? What's the conclusion of this? Be serious and watchful in your prayers. So, what is it that I need to be doing every day? Well, when I come to realize and understand and have a level of fear that the end of all things could happen at any time, and when I come to a reverential and a respectful fear that I'm going to have to give an account to God, then that will mean that each day I'm going to be serious. Serious about what? Well, serious about the way I conduct myself, serious about the life that I live, and serious about the truth concerning God. I will be serious of finding out what He wants, how He wants it, when He wants it. In other words, when He says jump, we say how high. We need it, giving an account to God, being judged by God, and that can happen at any time. I need to be serious, not looking within myself, not determining what is true and right within myself, not going by what I feel in my heart, but what God's Word says, and molding my attitude and my heart and my life into that, not what I feel in my heart. Again, if that was the case, then there's no accounting, there's no judgment, because we are our God at that point. We are our judge. We are our standard. And so Peter says, be serious and watchful in our prayers. So we need to be serious about each day that we live, that we are ready at any given time to give an account to God, to be ready to be judged by God, and to be ready at any moment, any breath, any twinkling of an eye, that the end of all things will come. This is very serious passages that Peter is getting us to try to stop and to think about, and we need to be serious about this, not nonchalant, just kind of going through life, zippity doodle kind of a thing, and just doing what we feel and doing what we want to, and think, oh well, I got John 3:16, and it's, we're good to go. No, if that was all the case, and what these mega star preachers are saying, or maybe even your local guy that you sit and listen to, if they're coming across and giving that basic concept and idea, they're not preaching what Peter is writing here. And so we need to be serious about God's Word. We need to be serious about how the end of all things is at hand. We need to be serious about having to give an account to God. We need to be serious about the idea of having to be judged by God. And so there's your dose of God's Word today, and I hope it will be beneficial to you. I hope it'll get your wheels turning, and maybe it'll bring about maybe some changes and alterations that you may need to make in your life, to bring you around to a seriousness, of these things that Peter is talking about, and myself as well. But there's our dose of God's Word, and I hope it'll do us all some good, so that we can get a seriousness and we can get a watchfulness in the life that we live while we're here, that it is about God, and it's all about God, and it's all about His will in order in our preparation to stand and to give an accounting to Him. And He's given us these things because He loves us, so that we'll know what we need to change, we'll know what His mind is, we know what His will is, and we'll know what we need to do to be pleasing to Him. Why? Because He loves us, and He wants us to spend eternity with Him in heaven. And so I hope this will do you some good today. Hope it'll get your wheels turning. And Lord willing, tomorrow we'll get back and be able to have another dose of God's Word to get our day started off right. Y'all have a good day, and we'll see you then.